Hey guys, I just want to give a huge shout out before the start of this Vileplume deck profile and gameplay video to Full Grip Games. Full Grip has seriously been so awesome to me this entire season. They've helped me get all sorts of sleeves, cards, card merchandise, really anything I could need related to Pokemon trading cards, they've had my back with, and I cannot express nearly enough my appreciation for the people that work there. They're all so awesome. So if you guys enjoy this kind of content and enjoy Tricky Gym, make sure you show your support to Full Grip Games at regionals or using their website, or even in the Akron area if you guys happen to be able to stop by. They have awesome local tournaments as well. Seriously, Full Grip is the best. And if you enjoy Tricky Gym, also be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on so you can know when new videos are uploaded. And with that, let's just get right into it. Alright, what's up my homies? Riley Hulbert here, subbing in for Andrew Mahone from Madison, Wisconsin, as we talk about my third place Vileplume Walls deck from St. Louis Regional Championship. Leading into St. Louis, I was incredibly nervous about the deck I might play. I was not feeling as confident in Zoroark Lycanroc as I was hoping, and my friend Adler Pierce actually comes to me with this deck. It had been brought to him by Michael Catrone, and we decided it would be so cool if we played this and went to town on it. A couple of our friends joined up in a group message who were interested, and this is what we ended up coming up with. So the whole point of this deck is to use Vileplume. Well, in some matchups at least, the point is to use Vileplume. You stick it active, and your opponent's basic Pokemon can't even attack. They can't even declare an attack. So stuff like Giratina, you can't put the damage on your bench if you want to clear your bench of basic Pokemon. I don't even know a particularly other useful attack, like spread attacks can't be used. It's not that Vileplume cannot be damaged, they just can't even attack at all. Super powerful card, only downside being it's stage 2, so you have to red candy it out. Other than that, it's incredibly good. I won quite a few games by just having a lone Vileplume board that my opponent could not deal with. And then looking alongside Vileplume, we have a lot of those Wall-E cards. So an example of that would be Hoopa. EX and GX Pokemon cannot attack it unless there's a Muck in play. Very powerful early game with Zoroark. Some decks don't even really have an answer to Hoopa at all. Even decks that in like electric decks like Pikarom, if Zapdos is their only real answer, because you can pretty easily deny the third energy on the Tapu Koko Prism, then Hoopa can really get some work done. Shuckle GX, another type of wall, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon that have Pokemon that have 2 or fewer energy attached. You can see the value of that, especially as you're denying energy. Jolteon GX, Zapdos are really going to struggle to hit this. And then also kind of Wrap GX is niche useful as well. Particularly, you can use your 1 Rainbow Energy, attach it to Shuckle, and Wrap GX on Ditto Prism Stars. So if that's your opponent's only way to access Muck, Muck is pretty much necessary in the Zoroark matchup for the Zoroark player to be able to KO your Pokemon. And Shuckle can just deny that if you get it out. Most of the time they are running Grimer now though, which I agree with. So these Pokemon in the middle here are all wall. And then we have some other Pokemon that just help our strategy as a whole. Regigigas, really cool card. It basically has no words on it that mean anything except for the 180 hit points. It's 2-hit KO from Zoroark. In fact, most Pokemon will be 3-hit KOing this non-GX. Really, really powerful for that. It really struggles your opponent to finish out the prize game, right? So there's 2 Rescue Shelter in this deck. You could potentially throw your 2 Regigigas at them 3 separate instances and force them to KO 6 Regigigas. Some decks just straight up can't even do that. Giant Stomp is relevant sometimes if your opponent Trickster GXs you, but for the most part, you won't even let your opponent Trickster GX in the first place, so not a huge deal. And then looking at our last 2 Pokemon, or our last 3 I guess, we have Articuno GX. Cold Crush GX is the main reason you play this card. So you can Legendary Ascent, which is similar to Tapu Koko GX's ability, except you do not need to move energy to move Articuno active. And then you can Cold Crush GX to discard all energy from both active Pokemon using your Rainbow Energy as tribute there. Really powerful when things start to get built up and overwhelm your board. Articuno GX for me was most useful against Jolteon GX, which is a card that this deck does struggle a little bit against, but if you can keep the energy slow, we'll end up winning, usually. And Legendary Ascent was actually something I used quite a bit. I would start maybe an Oddish or a bad Pokemon, and I would draw into Articuno GX. So Legendary Ascent just to get it active and keep my Oddish on the bench. And then finally we have Magikarp and Wailord. And Magikarp and Wailord basically just has 300 hit points. I did Towering Splash GX on one of my opponents in day 2, but that was mostly just for the meme of it. The 300 HP though is not to be understated. This guy can tank through so much, it's ridiculous, especially those electric decks when they run out of electric powers, Zapdos in particular. They just really can't KO Magikarp and Wailord. Super useful card. And then Unknown Hand, I did not use it too much throughout the tournament, but the presence of the card in the deck, in theory, wins you games. It forces your opponents to think about scooping instead of just stalling the game, because then they will typically lose the game in a little bit faster than if you were just going for pure deck out, although I did purely deck out plenty of people. If you are not familiar with this card, if this Pokemon is active and you have 35 or more cards in your hand, you can declare the hand ability to win the game. It's a really interesting win con, and it forces your opponent onto a timer because you're constantly going to be recurring and drawing cards, whereas they will be losing resources constantly. Yeah, I used it probably about, I want to say like 5 to 6 times during the tournament, maybe a little bit more. But my opponents would concede games at times just because the threat of it was there, and the inevitability, I guess you could say. Looking at the trainer lineup, which you can see is the majority of the deck, we have 4 Stevens resolve. The downside of Stevens being that you have to end your turn is not applicable at all to this deck. You just search for 3 cards you need for next turn, and one of those typically being another Stevens, and then you pass, which you would have done anyway. So really, really good card. In fact, probably the most optimal card to play on many turns, and especially the early turns. So we also play 4 Bills Analysis. 4 Bills Analysis, look at the top 7 cards. You may reveal up to 2 trainers and put them into your hand. This card is really good for desperation moments. If you need a max potion on the spot but don't have it in hand, it's good to play a Bills. But Bills is also 4 more outs to Stevens because we don't play Tapu Lele or Ultra Ball. So we really want to get those Stevens in our hand as quickly as possible, and Bill helps us get there. Looking at some of the other supporters, we have a couple more like draw type supporters. We have Copycat, which is good if your opponent shuffles your hand in and starts to build their hand back up. You can Copycat them, draw like 10, 8, or you can use Copycat to refill your deck if you just need a deck fill. Paint Lies is also good for deck fill, but you can also use the secondary effect to get Unknown Hand active in a pinch. Guzma can also be used to get Unknown Hand active or to trap something you don't like in the active position, or your opponent wouldn't like at least. You got 3 Acerola. Acerola is really good for healing. It's really good for getting Unknown active. We thought about going down to 2, but I think the healing is just too useful in this deck. So Acerola. Also loopable. If your opponent has to 3-hit KO any of your Pokemon, you can Lusamine Acerola loop forever. Gladion, getting those important supporter or item cards out of the prize cards. And then Plumeria to deny energy, Team Skullgrunt to deny energy from the hand. All really powerful cards. And then we have Mars, one of my favorite cards. Draw 2 cards, discard a random card from your opponent's hand. Good for preventing your opponent from trying to stall by slowly thinning their deck. And you can also potentially hit really key cards. Otto hit some good cards of the tournament. I hit someone's Pal Pad before. Those things really do matter. Item lineup, nothing really surprising. We don't actually play that many items. We have 4 Max Potion for healing, 4 Nest Ball for searching our Pokemon as quickly as possible. Typically, Nest Ball doesn't actually matter that much, but you want to open one so you don't get donked. Counter Catcher, we thought about playing 3, but 2 was pretty much sufficient for pulling up inefficient things to your opponent's active. Rescue Stretchers for recurring those Pokemon, especially Vileplume lines. And then some powerful stadium cards. We have Life Forest. Once during each player's turn, that player may heal 60 damage from their grass Pokemon. This is really good against Malamar in particular, because their only answer for a Vileplume is to attack with Malamar, and Life Forest heals the 60 that the Malamar will do. So you just have to bump all of Malamar stadiums and play Life Forest, and you win. Mount Lanakila increases the retreat cost of basic Pokemon, so it makes more inconvenient retreats. So you could just keep pulling things up, and eventually they will fizzle out of the ability to retreat. And Wondrous Labyrinth makes Pokemon's attack cost more, makes it harder for them to get their attacks off, and makes it more likely that Articuno can get a huge Cold Crush to remove a lot of their energy. The one spicy item in this deck, though, is the Acro Bike. We play 3 Acro Bikes, which is very atypical of a mill deck to play a card like that. What we found was the deck was struggling most against Marshadow early game, and we needed to just draw out of it and we would be okay. And so Acrobike was another way. It's 3 additional outs to draw into the deck, and almost every single time that I used the Desperation Acrobike, it paid off in some sort of way. So that's the deck, guys. That's what it looks like. I'll just jump into a game here on TCGO. Alright guys, what is up? We're against Randy 890711, playing his Grass and Dark type deck. I don't know what deck would be the combo of Grass and Dark with no other types, but let's get into it. It might be some sort of Vileplume stall deck of their own, I suppose. I'm not really sure. They're choosing to go first. And the Vileplume mirror, obviously it's good to go first. This deck has really no reason to go second at all. Some decks you can justify it. Start the Articuno GX, not the optimal starter, but at least it's got some HP on it. And if this really is a Vileplume mirror, then it actually won't really matter. So this looks like a Venusaur deck, perhaps? So the Venusaur matchup, you actually just want to set up the plume as quickly as possible, and then you win. So we're going to be looking at getting some Odysseys on board. Now let's see while my opponent chooses their active. What dark type would be in Venusaur though, if it is a Venusaur deck? I saw Acrobikes, and maybe it is just a plume stall deck like mine. Okay, it is Venusaur. Yeah, so the plan here will be to get down Odysseys as quickly as possible. Steven's Resolve. I almost want to Bills this turn and potentially hit a Nest Ball. If I top deck a Nest Ball, we'll be in really good shape. My opponent doesn't seem like they know what they're playing against. Playing Acrobikes. Oh man, Judge turn 1. That's a little scary. Yeah, Venusaur does play the thick line of Judge and Judge Whistle, so that could be annoying for us as far as our Stevens go. But we do start some Nest Balls at least. We don't really have a whole lot going on here, but it's something. Alright, Max Potion, sure. Yeah, let's just Nest Ball for some Oddish. Thin the deck out a little bit. And this is one of the hardest parts of playing the deck, is those turn 1 Marshadow and Judges. We'll pass it over to my opponent. Hold them out on Aquila. There's not really a reason to play it yet. My opponent probably not realizing what I played until now. Maybe they could have saved some of their cards, like the Shaman and the benching the second Venusaur even. It wasn't really good, but you know, it's hard to play just by seeing an Articuno GX. So they'll attach that DCE, drawing pretty hot off the Judge there. We might just lose just to the Judge. That would be pretty bad. If we get a oh, there's a Judge Whistle. Probably just to draw a card this time, though. Yep. Pollen Hazard, 50 damage to the active, and burns and poisons. So quite a bit going on here. Let's see. So we are not cured of the burn, but we're not at risk of being knocked out coming back. We'll just... does my opponent have a way to deal with Hoopa? Let's just get Hoopa down. Alright, so we're looking at my opponent's board. They don't have anything really that can deal with Hoopa yet. So we'll just stick that bad boy up and see how it goes. They did draw their energies fairly quickly, which is pretty upsetting for us. But again, if we get the plume out, they can't even shuffle their deck back in, and we'll just win the game. So we just need to stall until we can get some Stevens off that don't get judged away. Alright, so Articuno had to pass away. I'll promote that Hoopa and see where it takes us. Oh, and there's the Stevens Resolve. Like clockwork, he drew it. So let's get a Vileplume, a Rare Candy, and another Stevens Resolve to keep the chain going. So if my opponent doesn't judge us here, we will basically just win. Getting the plume out might as well be a win condition in this matchup. It might have even been good to put the Lanakila down, so that way if my opponent tries to judge us, that we aren't likely to draw it again. I'm not super concerned right now about them attacking, because we have 2 Odysseys down. Yep, there's the Judge Whistle. kind of had to expect it. Should have put the Lanakila down for that purpose, because I'm likely not going to be gusting that much. But the fact they have to use that does mean that they cannot attack anything on my bench this turn, and they certainly can't attack the Hoopa. Oh, they don't play the Judge. That's interesting. That seems like a misplay on my opponent's part. Maybe they didn't realize that Hoopa blocked the effects as well, but that's fine. We'll Steven's Resolve here, and we'll start building up our hand. We'll get our Steven's Resolve, Mars, and Elusamine. So if my opponent continues to not Judge, it'd be really good here if we can get the Elusamine off, start refilling our Steven's Resolves. It's really important actually to keep Steven's Resolve in your deck as much as possible, because your opponent will start disrupting your hand mid-game, and you want to continue to be able to draw the disruption. Not as huge in the matchup like this, which is super walled by Hoopa, but more important other matchups where you don't necessarily know if your Pokemon will be able to survive from turn to turn. My opponent's just going to Solar Beam. Does not hit Hoopa, but I'm sorry. Well, Elusamine, getting both Stevens back and putting Elusamine in the discard pile. So we are just juiced up right now. Got Unknown Hand in our hand. The quickest way to count if you have 35 is actually to count all these numbers. So we have 6 in discard, 35 in deck, 6 in the prize cards, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5, 11, 17, and 52. So our hand is 8 right now. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you just do that until you have 35. My opponent's still trucking along here. I don't really know if they have a way to win. We'll probably have to speed this segment up as we get to 35 cards maybe. There's the Judge. It doesn't matter though how many times my opponent judges us if they never KO our Pokemon. That's how it is. They can take up to 5 prize cards and still lose the game. There's an Aether Paradise. We could build here, or we could Faba to just kind of lay it on him thick. I don't see a reason not to. Faba. There it goes. I love the Lost Zone. I love things going to the Lost Zone. How do you guys feel about the Lost Zone returning? I personally am a huge fan of it. I like Faba as a card. I kind of wish there was more special energy hate on that kind of level almost. I think Lost Remover is too much though, so maybe Faba is just as far as it can be. Opponent plays Lily, and there's the concede. We would have got the Unknown Hand off. Eventually, Venusaur is a very, very positive matchup as a result of all the wall cards that we play. We'll see if maybe we can get one more game in where we get the Plume out. Alright, here we are against some sort of Grass, Psychic, Lightning deck. Grass, Psychic, and Lightning. Seems like an odd combination to me, but we'll take winning that coin flip and going first. So let's see, we have a Hoopa, which is typically a decent starter. Depending on my opponent's deck though, it might not be. And our hand is kind of dead right now. This is one of the hardest parts of the deck, besides being judged, just crappy opening hands. Oh, it's Lost March. That's definitely not good. Well, I guess we'll pass. And we gotta hope that we draw out of this for next turn. Shuckle is a really, really important card in this matchup. Pulling up the Emolga without Lanakila out, also good. Marshadow, great card to pull up. We just gotta hope they don't get too many Pokemon down this first turn. Also, the Trumbeaks could potentially be deadly in this matchup. Because if they hit the right cards off the top, that could really impact our win condition. So there goes away a Pokemon. It's supposed to reveal the Pokemon that you shuffle back with communication, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter, but that's kind of weird. Alright, so there's Tate and Liza. I guess we'll just play the Mount Lanakila down and Tate and Liza. I don't know, I could have pulled up the Emolga maybe, but we found a Regigigas, so that'll keep us going for a little bit. My opponent does have this Vileplume in their hand, we know this for sure. They're going to use Floral Path to the Sky. 2 Pokemon in the Lost Zone. They need 6 to KO with Jump Bluff or 7 with Natu. So I think we'll be okay for this turn, actually. Most likely. There's the Ultra Ball. Alright, discarding some Draw Supporters for another Hoppip. I don't know why they didn't do that last turn and get more Hoppips. But that is on them. There's a Cynthia. So Shuckle's really good in this matchup as long as we can continually remove their energy cards. Shuckle can potentially be KO'd though. It's not easy to constantly remove all the energy. But the combination of Shuckle / some other wall and pulling up like a Molga, really effective. They haven't played that many ball cards and they have a couple Pokemon in the Lost Zone, but they only grabbed a Skiploom there, so let's just hope they don't hit something important like Lucamine or Guzma or Plumeria off a Trumbeak. We do play mostly supporters in the deck, so it's not surprising if they hit one at all. But they whiff, so we have some sort of item or Pokemon on top. There's the Lost Blender. Oh, they're close. They're at 5 right now. But not the 6. Alright, so Hoopa lives. Bless you. Bless you, Hoopa. Alright, Articuno GX, we don't really need that. Let's just Bill's Analysis, I suppose. And with Bill's Analysis, we'll get a Steven's Resolve. And maybe a Max Potion. I don't really feel like that's going to be super useful, though. So we'll get a Steven's Resolve and just a Mars. My opponent likely will Marsh out of this away, so we're just going to have to roll with what we got. We might get benched here, though, if the Marshadows really stick us. Though if my opponent doesn't play Stadiums, our best win condition will probably be Plumeria here, Enhanced Hammer here, and Counter Catcher this. That's kind of what I'm feeling. With just a 1 Pokemon board. Because it's unlikely they play any sort of switch cards, though they might play a new Stadium, which would obviously not be good. So I think the ideal board state would be 1 Shuckle on board, Emolga active, Lanakila down, and no energy on the bench. Is the way to do it. But we'll see. My opponent gets that Skiploom out. Floral Path to the Sky puts them at 7 in the Lost Zone from the 5 they had before. Nuzzly Gathering. Fail it. Alright. They must have prized an Emolga or 2. And Lily. That's weird that they chose to Lily instead of Cynthia there. I wonder what they had in their hand that they wanted to keep. There's a Hoppip coming down. This damage is really getting overwhelming fast. Gotta say. 140. So we might have to just rescue Stretcher that Hoopa back. That feels bad. But I definitely don't want to put Articuno down and give them those prizes, so we'll do that, and we'll Steven's Resolve for... We'll get Nest Ball, so we can get whatever Pokemon we want, including Shuckle. We'll Plumeria. Oh, we probably just want to Counter Catcher. Oh man, that's tough. And oh man, Nest Ball, Stevens, and let's call it with an Enhanced Hammer. That seems fine. The hard thing is they can just attach a DCE to the Jump Bluff now, so it gets a little scary. We fell a little behind on our tempo. They have so much energy on the board too. That's definitely scary. So now we have to be most afraid of them playing counter Stadiums. Because if they play counter Stadiums, that would really suck. Oh shit. Let's just get the Shuckle down. Can't stand for them not to. Well, Stevens for a counter catcher. A nest ball, I suppose. We do have another Stevens in our hand, so we'll just Plumeria. And we're going to have to pray that my opponent doesn't have the nuts here after we pull up this Emolga. If they don't play another stadium, we might just win. Especially if they knock out the Hoopa this turn. We'll see though. We did cut the Crushing Hammers from this deck. We originally played 2, and we cut them for the Acro Bikes because we found the Crushing Hammer wasn't particularly useful. This matchup, it probably would be useful. That's just another mean stream of energy. But I think we might end up being fine here. If my opponent Marshadowed me, that's going to be the worst, I think. That's the worst case scenario. There's a Natu, so no Marshadow this game. Alright. So we're not going to bench anything else right now. We're going to pull up the Natu. Let's see, we could Plumeria or we could just Stevens. I think we'll just Stevens here. We'll get a Guzma, a Lucamine, and a Team Skullgrunt. So we just want to have as many ways to gust as possible. Because right now they cannot attack within 1 turn, if that makes sense. Because they cannot get the Natu out of the active and attack with a jump bluff in the same turn. So we'll see what they do here. They might attach to it. They might attach to the bench. Attaching to the bench is what I would say would be the best. But we'll see. Deliberating on their move here. We do have Counter Catcher and Guzma for 2 consecutive gust effects. There's a Mountain Pass. Not too concerned at this point about what they can hit with it. Acerola doesn't matter at all. The only thing that could suck is if our second and third Lucamine were hit by the Trumbeak. That would be bad. They're going for another Trumbeak. Makes sense. If we don't lose Lucamine here, then we'll be fine. And they didn't hit anything at all. So, pretty good here. I think we should be on the path to win this game. I don't see a way that we lose at this point, as long as we keep our gust effects. So they didn't even draw an energy here, so we can take this turn to Plumeria, discarding just 2 Pokemon, getting rid of this energy, and then we'll pass it back over. This Natu is a 2 retreat cost right now, which is pretty hefty too. Let's see, they're taking some time with this turn, which almost makes me think they have energy in their hands. So if they don't do anything, I think it would be good to just Team Skullgrunt them. And if worst case, we get an idea of what's in their hand. Yep, so they were thinking about just attaching an energy. You have to be into those kind of tells with these kind of decks. They do have some deck refills, but that's not a huge concern to us. We'll just pass. So they've lost 2 DCEs so far out of the 3 or 4 that they play. Again, because they use 3 Trumbeaks, they can't hit all our Lucamines, so we're not concerned. Sorry, Bill's analysis, and they concede. So that shows the power of the deck. You can go down quite a bit in a game. As long as you have your endgame prepared, then you should be good. And that's kind of what Vileplume is all about. It's a very powerful deck, really disruptive, and just kind of fun to play as well. It's kind of fun to play. It's really satisfying to come up with those checkmate scenarios for your opponent. So just briefly, I'm going to touch on my tournament run to get 3rd place at Collinsville. You'll probably hear more from Otto about the details of his run on Tricky Gym. But round 1 was actually my first loss, and out of 2 in the tournament was to Pikarom, which should be a very good matchup with Vileplume, but the Marshadow stuck really hard, so that's kind of the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Totally understand. That's part of the game. Round 2 was Pikarom. I won 2-0. Mally spread round 3, 2-0. Ultra Necrozma round 4, 2-0. Pikarom round 5, 2-0. 2 Zoroarks in a row. Round 6 and 7, 2-0 both of those. And Jolteon Buzzwole in round 8, I 2-0'd. So I was at 7-1 going into round 9. And then I tied round 9 with a friend to go 7-1-1 into day 2. All my games were pretty dominant. The hardest matchup was the round 7 Zoroark was playing the Persian that discards cards from your hand if you have more than 4. So I had to constantly be keeping my hand super low, which is difficult to do with the deck. But the combination of Plumeria and his Viridian Forest, I was able to stay below 4 and remove all his energy from play. Round 10, I was against Zapdos Lycanroc, which was a win. Pikarom, and I tied that match. I was going to win that match if I had like 5 more minutes, but my opponent was a little bit slow. It's part of playing a stall deck is running into those kind of situations. I completely blame myself for not accelerating the pace of play. Pikarom was a tie. Zoroark, I lost to that 2-0 actually, or 0-2 loss. It was my only loss this dominant in the tournament because I was playing against Aaron Tarbell and his Zoroark deck played Switch and Oranguru and Kukui. So the Rainbow Acerola engine of the deck you can actually beat because they cannot continue to Oranguru while you have Vileplume active, but if they're Acerola stuff, then that's their supporter for the turn, and they can't Kukui and knock you out. Whereas the Switch version can knock you out if you go for a lone Vileplume into a Oranguru board. So it's pretty tough to deal with. I never could really establish a board that didn't get judged. But I played a Zoroark that wasn't prepared round 13 and won 2-0. Malamar Shrine 2-0. And then Jolteon Zapdos in my winning in. I lost game 1, I got donked, and then I 2-0'd him after that. And then at top 8, Ultra Necrozma, very easy matchup, 2-0'd that. And top 4, I lost to Zach Lesage's Blacephalon. I won game 1, and game 2 and 3, I just could not find quite enough pieces off the mid-game Marshadow. Just draw 4 cards is not enough. But that is okay. Third place is nothing to scoff at. This deck had a lot of great matchups. Ultra Necrozma was basically a free win. A lot of Zoroark decks were pretty easy to play against as long as they did not judge you into oblivion. Pikarom and Zapdos, super favorable. Zapdos, even with Jolteon, is tough to win as the Zapdos deck because you can easily deny the Jolteon. Pikarom with Jolteon, though, is much, much harder. Moving forward, I think this deck is pretty powerful still, and format defining, I think. You have to be able to have this deck in your mind because it will come up and bite you if you ignore it. I would even play it at local events because I think Unknown Hand is a fast enough win condition to win at locals. But let me know what you guys think. Do you like Vileplume Stall? Do you think it's a plague onto the format? I kind of think it might be a little bit of a plague, but it's also very fun to play. So I recommend those of you who are interested in stall decks try it. It's a great new iteration of the archetype. Very fun to play. And I will see you guys around. I'll be back in Ohio at some point, I'm sure. Until then.